Welcome to the Saturday Morning Nerd Show. It is our Game of the Year show. It is the end of 2023, and we are about to announce our top 10 games of the year, including our Game of the Year. I'm Marcus Blake, your host, and joining with me, as always, is the Brewing Sailor, Mr. Brendan Smith.
Hello, everybody.
And from the Electric Jellyfish Podcast, Mr. Chad Womack.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
All right. Chad has got to get through this show quickly. He's got NBA Jam to play.
I'm sorry. I'm an old school fool. So
No, you never apologize for that when we do a game. Anyway, it's hard to believe that we are at the end of the year. And calculating our top 10 games of the year to see who's going to win. Now, what will be interesting, and we're not going to spoil it at the beginning of the show because you're going to have to watch it. Will we agree with the Game of the Year awards or not? Most of the time, I don't think we've actually ever agreed with them.
Let's just put it this way. Even if we happen to pick the same game, that doesn't mean we agree with them. Might be stretching the term.
Thank you for pointing that out. I still want to call out the Game Awards for being a bunch of pussies and not at least giving Hogwarts Legacy a nomination and trying to stay away from that controversy.
Also, we can call them out for why don't we just get rid of the Game Awards and make it a video game show like E3 because you only give the winners 30 seconds to talk and then had a big giant sign saying, hurry up, get off the stage. Really, Jeff Keighley? In the words of Cap Falcon, you got to do better.
Yeah. Well, here at That Nerd Show, we don't shy away from the controversy. We just call out the other companies for their bullshit. And that's the way it works. Now, one thing that we should get out of the way early on as we calculated our votes. No, Starfield did not end up in our top 10 list for many reasons. While it's a fun, free Game Pass game, you still got a lot of work to do. And it just isn't worthy to be a top 10 game.
Honestly, it is super disappointing. First of all, Todd Howard, you straight up lied to me on numerous occasions, so screw you. See that moon over there? You can go to it. Like, see that mountain over there? You can run to it. No, you can't because there's an invisible ball in the way, and then you have to run back to your ship, go back into orbit, then go back down to an area close to that mountain, which generates a new kernel of procedurally generated content, which, guess what? Doesn't have that mountain. That mountain never existed. It was a mirage. Fooled you. So, Starfield is maybe a 6 out of 10, but they promised it an 11 out of 10, and it doesn't have as good as exploration and discovery as Skyrim. It doesn't have as good planetary or space exploration as No Man's Sky. These are games that are a decade or almost a decade old. And as far as the story goes, Baldur's Gate 3 absolutely trounced it. I
will say this. Your reveal show was very awesome. Getting into the game, again, you still have a lot of work to do. However, and this has been part of our gaming discussion as we have our own private chat leading up to our shows. If Cyberpunk 2077 has proven anything, if you take the time to really fix bugs, keep doing massive updates, really improving your game, you're going to get an awesome game. And 3 years later, that's what Cyberpunk is, especially with the release of Phantom Liberty. So for anybody that didn't get into Cyberpunk when it first came out, and we understand why, the concept was there. It had a lot going for it. It just wasn't ready to release yet. But I will give them this. You have made massive amounts of improvements, and it is definitely a great game now. If it had been released this year, it definitely would have been a serious contender for Game of the Year. But anyway, maybe Bethesda will take a lesson from them in how to develop Starfield, and over the next few years, it will get greatly improved.
I hope so, but I don't think so for two reasons. One, another great YouTube channel out there who covers Bethesda very, very well, as well as BioWare and a few others, and that's Mr. Matty Plays. He had a really good insight back in the days of Fallout 3, Oblivion, and Skyrim. Todd Howard used to talk about delivering a great player experience. Now they talk about delivering a space simulator. We don't need a simulator. We want a great experience. We want not just exploration for exploration's sake, but when you go somewhere, find something that's important, like you used to do in Oblivion, in Skyrim, and Fallout 3. And so that's a big issue. There's a fundamental design and core philosophy shift that's happened at Bethesda. That's a problem. The other problem is this. The base systems in Cyberpunk were pretty good and allowed them to fix them to make everything work right. The base game the core game was a good game. The problems I have with Starfield are extremely systemic and would require an entire rebuild, and I just don't see that coming.
No, it may not happen, but like I said, one can hope. Or at the very least, you have learned your lessons from this when you eventually release Elder Scrolls 6. So we'll see. But as for Cyberpunk, yeah, if you've been on the fence for it, I will say it is worth getting now. It's cheaper now. You can actually find pretty good deals on the DLC and the base game. And, Phantom Liberty definitely ended up in our top 10 list. And I know a lot of awards and, other outlets have praised this game as the best ongoing game out there. So, as I said, it's a cautionary tale. My only hope is supposedly we're getting Skull and Bones in February or March or at some point.
Just don't care.
Yeah, I know. Like, are we really getting it?
Look, I don't care what. Like, so IGN's like, after this most recent beta, there's real reason to be upbeat about this game. And I'm like, yeah, IGN, you fooled me. You guys have fooled me with this before. Because here's IGN's cycle. IGN is going to go like this. 2 months before, they're going to be like, the beta gives us real reason to be excited about it. Then it's going to come out, and they're going to be like 7 out of 10. It's kind of a mid game. And then 2 months later, they're going to come out with an editorial and and they're going to be like, yeah, this game is actually hammered dog shit. We're sorry we told you to buy it.
Right.
I've done it like 5 times now. I'm just like with big, massive titles, and I'm just so done with it. And this game, for those who don't know, Skull and Bones has been in development for 10 years. It started off as a DLC for Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. It's gone through multiple game directors, multiple iterations. It's gone from a DLC to a full game to a much bigger game to a much smaller game. We don't know all we know is what they showed off last year, and they thought they were ready to show off something great. And what they showed off last year was absolutely awful. And the entire community was like, it took you 10 years to fucking do that.
Yeah. I know. And it's not like when you rushed a preview of Halo at, the first E3 with the first Xbox, and then a year later, you massively had improved upon it to where it was an awesome game. And as we all know from the movies, when you switch directors with 2 different visions, the second director will always put out something awesome, Joss Whedon in Justice League, compared to the original director. So, anyway, who knows what we're getting? I'm kind of like, I'm going to try it in the summer after they've had a few months of updates to see if it's a good game.
Speaking of lessons learned, can 2024 be the year where video game publishers stop going to video game developers that are known primarily for story-driven single-player, whether that's action or RPG, content, and saying, we want you guys to make a live service game that's going to have lots of microtransactions, because it doesn't work. We've tried it. We've tried it now with BioWare, with Anthem, and that was a mess. And by the way, not only was it a mess, but it drove a lot of the talent away from the studio because they didn't want to work on this type of the game, because that's not why they were at BioWare. And then they tried it at Arcane Austin with Redfall, and that was an absolute unmitigated disaster. So can we stop doing that now, video game publishers? I know you all want the next Fortnite, but you're not going to get it turning Arcane into BioWare into something they're not.
By the way, speaking of Redfall, you can get copies for $5 this week at GameStop. They have given a significant discount to clear their shelves of the inventory. The sad part is the disc is still not worth $5. It's worth about as much as the old AOL disc, trial disc back in the
I had it.
90s.
My barracks room in the Navy. I had an entire set of AOL coasters.
I know. And by the way, if you want a really cool looking coaster with a gaming theme, that's what the Redfall disc is. So by all means, if you're a pro member at GameStop and you want to spend your $5 monthly, award to get some really cool coasters, Redfall is available. So, speaking of AOL, I kind of shit on them and we make fun, but at the same time, I did get 4 years of free internet in college because AOL couldn't figure out how to change the code where all you had to do is create a whole nother email from AOL, make it look like, but the payment information could literally be the same. Good job. All right. Little unfinished, little complaints about the gaming industry, and hopefully there'll be some lessons learned going into 2024. We'll see.
I'm not counting on it. I'm not holding my breath, but I'm hoping.
We're totally optimistic on this show. Anyway, all right, so let's get to our top 10 games of the year, starting with number 10. Number 10 on our list is Resident Evil 4, the remake, which came out back in March. I'm not surprised this didn't end up in our top 10 list because, excuse me, the remakes of these Resident Evil games have been incredible. Even, greatly apologize, that Irish coffee, it's going down the wrong pipe there. Even if Resident Evil 3 as a game wasn't that great, the remake was still a lot of fun and looked gorgeous. So, of course, the best-selling and most popular of the Resident Evil games, of course, you had to remake 4, and it was one of the best games of the year. Now, Chad, I know you're a huge Resident Evil fan since the beginning, and it's, diving into this game a little bit versus Resident Evil 2 and 3 and everything. I mean, what is your take? How does this game, the remake, compare to the other two that they've done?
Well, I mean, it's a whole new aesthetic, and this was probably, as far as remakes go, this was probably as close as their current, Resident Evil Biohazard storyline, as far as the way the game feels.
Right.
It felt like Biohazard and Village. Way it played, it felt a little bit more non-traditional, like it's fascinating to me how they pulled that off, to where you're playing Resident Evil 4. It's like your eyes see one thing, but your brain is telling you something completely different, and it works. And you would think that with those two things, kind of, you would expect them to collide with each other and not mesh, and they freaking mesh.
Yeah,
it's really impressive. It's a really, really impressive feat of Capcom.
Well, I mean, we've gotten impressive, remasters. I mean, the Halo Master Chief remasters are great. The Uncharted, when they went to, the PS4, but to kind of redo the game, to give you a whole new experience with it that, feels familiar. And for those that didn't necessarily play the originals, that can dive in and like, wow, these games really are good. This was just one of my favorite games. I had never completed Resident Evil 4. I've, started it a few times and got about halfway, but to kind of play this, and you're right, the comparison to Village, and I loved Village.
Yeah, that's not a negative at all.
No, I mean, when they went back to the horror genre with Biohazard, and Biohazard's a great little game, it's going to take you about 6-7 hours. Village just kind of blew me away. And Granted, we didn't have a lot of great games that year, a couple of years ago, but Village just blew everything out of the water. It was so much fun to play. In fact, I've gone back and played it twice now.
If
Yeah.
Biohazard can be compared to a film, it's obviously it's going to draw comparisons to Chainsaw.
Sure.
And with Village, it felt like kind of felt like almost like the Showtime series Penny Dreadful.
Yeah, that's a great.
That kind of feeling to it.
So, I mean, you've gone back. I mean, I don't know if they should ever go back and remaster 5 and 6. I think that's kind of unnecessary. Yeah, because this is a horror series. I don't need to be playing special agent with these characters.
Yeah, I don't need Die Hard with zombies. That's
right. But you nailed it with the Resident 4 the remake, and if you haven't gotten to it yet, there's some incredible deals on it, and it is absolutely worth playing. I'm about ready to go back through it again. Also, the one thing that
Marcus, though, if they can fix 5 and 6 by remaking it, I'm all for it. if they want to put a drop on that pig and make it cute, then I'll give it a shot.
Right.
But if it's so much like those original two, no, I'll pass.
I got you. Now, one thing we should point out about the Resident Evil 4 remake, unfortunately, Ashley is still just as annoying as she was in the original game. She might look cuter in high definition, but she's still fucking annoying. There's a few points in the game where you're like, I know I should be saving her, but can I just leave her here?
I want to put a bullet in her face. I hate anytime here comes an escort mission. Oh shit.
I know.
Right? Every game ever. Yeah. There's like no game has ever done escort missions well. They're such a pain in the ass. Nobody likes them.
I remember in the old days, SOCOM 2 and 3. I'm like, and your escort. I was like, oh shit.
Oh well. All right. That was rounding out our number 10. So we're going to get to number 9. Number 9 on our list turned out to be Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty, the DLC. It also ended up being our shooter of the year. Now, some of you are wondering, what? Call of Duty didn't be your shooter of the year? No.
Go ask Christopher Judge why.
Yeah.
I'll put it this way. The new Call of Duty might be worth $20, once it gets there, but Jesus Christ.
I love how salty the developers got over that.
I do too.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? It wouldn't have been funny if it wouldn't at least have obviously it's a hyperbolic statement, but it wouldn't have been funny if the spirit of the statement did not ring true.
Right. But no, it did not end up on our list for good reason. Also, I think the most important thing is you shouldn't call it Modern Warfare 3. It's just Modern Warfare 6. But, hey.
Yeah, yes. And any game that charges full price for a $30 or $20 DLC is not going to be on our top 10 list.
Right. But Phantom Liberty, after a great game, yes. It's funny because I just got into it after we've explored games and we've done some stuff, and then you have to remove stuff from your hard drive. Like I did my 30 hours in Starfield, and then I'm like, yeah, this is off my hard drive now. I've done enough with it. When they've done massive amount of updates, I'll revisit to see if they've improved anything. But I immediately put Cyberpunk back on my Xbox and got Phantom Liberty, and I dived right into that because I'm almost done with the base game. And two things that come to mind. A, you have a game where you have Keanu Reeves and Idris Elba guiding you and you're working with you? Fuck yeah. Here's my money. Going on secret missions with Idris Elba? Yes, please. I have to save the president and it feels like Escape from New York? Yes. I'm almost done with it. I've loved everything about Phantom Liberty. They have crafted a really great DLC. It's every bit worth the $30. on your massively improved game. So yeah, everybody pretty much voted on this, and it ended up being our shooter of the year, and it just looks absolutely gorgeous. So it was the right time to drop some DLC after they've made mass improvements to Cyberpunk.
And I will say this, just a direct comparison. You got more. What was Phantom? Was it a $35, $40 DLC?
Yeah, when it retail, I think it's
yeah.
about 30 now. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's say it was 40. You got more for a $40 DLC than Modern Warfare 3 gave you for an entire game. So that's all I need to say right there.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a shooter with that level of just nothing per dollar for it since Battlefield 1.
Right.
Where it came out with like 3 maps and like 10 hero characters, and it was a $70 game, and then they wanted to charge $100 for 2 extra hero characters and 1 map or whatever it was. It was like, all right, DICE, EA, Lucasfilm, I want you to all step back from the crack pipe now, okay?
Right. They'll buy it because it's got Star Wars on the box. We don't have to put a campaign with Battlefront. Anyway.
Yeah.
But no, Phantom Liberty, just the DLC was a lot better than most of the stuff that came out this year. That's how good it is. So, but it is number 9 on our list based on how we all voted. And like I said, it's very much worth the price where it is now. And I love any game where you feel like you're playing Escape from New York. That was when that mission started, I'm like, oh, can I switch my name from B to Snake Plumkin? So, by the way, I mean, if we're going to do 80s action nostalgia games, I'm not saying that RoboCop wasn't a good choice, but Escape from New York, we can't make a game like that. Anyway. All right, moving right along.
Oh, come on. If we're going to do 80s movies and games, I'm going to need a Big Trouble in Little China game.
You know what? Right on, sir.
I'm still waiting on my Buckaroo Banzai game. Just saying.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that either, but
I would play that game too.
I want to be the Pork Chop Express. That's all I'm saying.
It's funny. When I look at Kim Cattrall, I don't look at her career after she was a Klingon. It's everything before, leading up to that moment. Like, you peaked when you were a Klingon, and you were still hot as a Klingon. But in Big Trouble Little China, yeah.
When did she play a Klingon?
Star Trek VI, Undiscovered Country.
She was a Vulcan.
Okay, so the Irish
she was a Vulcan.
The Irish coffee is apparently getting to me.
I'm like that. Wait, the Chancellor's daughter? That wasn't Kim Cattrall. What? Huh?
Okay.
I was like, that's an awful lot of makeup.
Wow.
Blame it on the booze, Marcus.
I am blaming it on the booze. This episode is sponsored by Jameson, which goes really good in coffee, and you get your characters mixed up. Anyway, the Vulcan. All right, moving along.
We digress.
Moving along to number 8 on our list. Assassin's Creed Mirage. So Assassin's Creed, after 3 huge open world games, finally went back to its roots and gave us kind of a smaller game with a more linear and simple campaign in the Middle East. And it was great. Also, they did not overcharge for it. Yes, the retail value on this game was like $40, which I thought was kind of amazing. So, it's about.
Wait, hold on. Ubisoft did something right. Wait, what?
I know. The apocalypse is upon us.
Next thing you're going to be telling me EA is going to update Madden.
Well, I don't want to go that far, but I'm not saying you shouldn't go get your rosary right now.
How much have you been drinking, Brendan?
Anyway,
nothing in about 700 days, actually.
Woohoo! But I'm very glad that they went back to more of an old school Assassin's Creed game and actually took us back to the Middle East and stuff. It was a lot of fun. The campaign is really only about 12 to 14 hours, depending on how you play. And it was very much worth the price. So, and definitely gorgeous for the next gen consoles. I mean, I am not saying that Origins and Odyssey and even Valhalla weren't good looking games, but this is the first Assassin's Creed game that was truly built for the next gen, and it really looked like a movie. So it's no surprise that it ended up on our list. And if you are an Assassin's Creed fan, you should absolutely play it. So, all right. Number 7. Super Mario Wonder. Of course, we've got to have some Nintendo Switch games on there. Now, Chad, did you actually pick this game up?
No, I have not.
Okay. I have not played it. This is voted on by most of our Nintendo Switch staff, but this is another great little Mario game that went back to a 2D format. And surprisingly enough, you didn't have to pay a whole lot for that game either.
It's amazing how many games that are value per dollar are finding our way onto our list. It's almost like if you give us something worth our money, video game companies will spend it.
We might praise you in our end of the year show of why this is a good game and you didn't rip us off. So, I mean, we're very fond of saying with a lot of games, well, it was a good Game Pass game because I didn't have to pay for it.
Which is kind of like saying it's really mid and I'm glad I didn't pay for it.
Right. Absolutely. All right. But Super Mario Wonder, yeah, kind of getting back to old school Mario game roots with a new 2D adventure. A lot of fun and very reasonably priced for the Nintendo Switch. And, and I do love how their 2D games just absolutely look amazing. So, anyway, all right. Moving on to number 6. And this gets into we start getting into a lot of the bigger games this year. Spider-Man 2. So we knew that this game was going to come. We knew obviously it had to happen after Spider-Man Miles Morales, but getting to play 2 Spider-Mans in the same game in this absolutely movie quality, visually stunning game. And we kind of rag on superhero video games a lot. There's a lot that just aren't really that good. They're definitely not worth the price, and this, kind of leads into a question, what is the best superhero video game of all time? And we're going to answer that here in a moment, but Spider-Man 2 kind of went above and beyond what we were expecting by being able to switch off between 2 Spider-Mans and, getting to play, incredible villains from Venom to, Kraven the Hunter. I got to admit, it's one of the best games for me, one of the funnest games that I bought this year.
Although Spider-Man 2 fanboys are going to be going nuts right now because we have it at 6th. I actually had it a little higher. But yeah, Spider-Man 2 fanboys lost their goddamn minds with Baldur's Gate 3 won Game of the Year. It was hilarious. The meltdowns on Twitters, the Twitix, whatever you want to call it now. Yeah, it was insane. And look, it's a good game. And yeah, it did, add multiple characters and all that. But I mean, it's essentially, it's a sequel in the truest sense of the word, in that it really didn't innovate from the previous game. It's an expansion on the previous game. And when I say expansion, I mean expansion of what you can do in the game, not a direct expansion, but it's an expansion of the things that you can do in the game. They've added more hunters. They made the city bigger. They made the city, better graphics, but they really didn't innovate anything to make it so crazy different from the first one. The first one was the much bigger jump in technology and
Right.
much bigger jump in, bringing video, single player superhero video games into the mainstream again, to where, hey, this is a thing. The first one, it's not Spider-Man 2 that got the Wolverine game, okayed. It was Spider-Man 1. So it's a very, very good game. I just, contrary to the Spider-Man 2 fanboys out there, I'm sorry, it's just not good enough to be game of the year.
Look,
And y'all are gonna hate me because of the game I voted for game of the year, and that's okay. I'm here for it. You can bring it. Vent is cool.
but you're not saying anything that's contrary. I mean, you're not wrong.
To them, I am. To them,
I know. And look, we all love our games, certain games where we just think it's the greatest in the world, and sometimes we're blinded by our devotion.
Oh, come on. I'm still salty. I mean, I get it. I'm still salty that Jack Black beat Mark Hamill out for voice performer of the year.
Well, every nerd should be, but anyway, the first Spider-Man game, yeah, that was groundbreaking. We hadn't gotten it. We hadn't gotten a game like that, and nothing against.
Can you believe that DC turned down a Superman game like that?
Yeah.
Did you? Instead, we went with the upcoming Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League, where you take a whole bunch of villains who don't use guns, and the entire game is making them use guns.
I know. I mean, it looks kind of fun, but I'm not rushing.
Hey, guess what that is? That's another developer making another publisher making a developer do a live service game that they don't know how to make.
I know. But I mean, I loved the first Spider-Man game. I really did. I mean, it had everything you would want in kind of an open world game. It brought Spider-Man to life, and you weren't done with this game in like 10 or 12 hours. I mean, you could easily spend 100 hours in that game with the side quests and coming across all Spider-Man's villains. It was a lot of fun. Okay, and definitely has a lot of replay value. And Miles Morales was a lot of fun. But all you've done with Spider-Man 2 is you've put these characters together in a game that just looks better. Okay, and I'm not going to take away from that. I'm enjoying it, loved it, definitely belongs in the top 10. But no, it isn't game of the year, and I don't know. I mean, tell me a superhero video game that really was worthy of game of the year.
I mean, you probably could have made a case for the first Spider-Man. Definitely one of the Batman Arkham games.
I'd say, yeah.
Yeah. There are a few out there that could have. I mean, I don't think any of them did, but they definitely could have.
But here's the thing about the Batman Arkham games. I mean, all three of them are good. You get this, great adventure. You got them voiced by two of the greatest Batman voice actors, Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy. So, they definitely have great replay value. The remastered editions, which I've gone back and played, and they're groundbreaking for their time. And they probably are some of the best, superhero video games. They're definitely a lot better than what Marvel has put out. The Avengers game wasn't really that good. I mean, the Guardians of the Galaxy game was fun, but I don't know if it was worth $60 unless you're just a Guardians of the Galaxy huge fanboy where you got to get everything of the Guardians. Yeah. I got it for $20 and enjoyed the hell out of it for $20.
So in 2009, Arkham Asylum won the BAFTA Video Game of the Year. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious to see what didn't, if anything did win.
Well, but my point is, Spider-Man 2 is going to end up in our list as one of our favorite games of the year, obviously. But there's at least 3 different games that we're going to talk about that are way better as a video game. So
The one thing I will give Spider-Man 2 credit for is that I think they probably did a better job in putting Craven on the screen than that
movie that's coming out next year that got delayed.
the movie that we don't care about.
The next Morbius. Yeah.
The movie that Mike, what's his name? Aaron Taylor Johnson. Is that it's the movie that might cost him being James Bond?
Yeah, no kidding.
By the way, I still haven't even watched Morbius. I mean, it was free on Netflix, and I'm like, I don't even want to put it on the background.
You don't want to get into Morbin time.
It's not worth any of your time at all.
The best parts of that movie are Matt Smith chewing up the scenery, and you can just watch that on YouTube.
Yeah,
I figured. Matt Smith is really the only reason I would ever go back and watch Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, which I thought was kind of a clever take on that story. But
Matt Smith is the only reason I'll go back and watch a lot of things. And I mean that both as a compliment and as a shot at his agent, because man, some of his role selection is just suck. Like, he's ended up in some right shit movies, and he's the only good part of them. But I mean, hey, you know what? I guess I got to give his agent a little bit of a reprieve because he got him the main role in House of the Dragon. So
right. Although I'm still curious to see his part in Rise of Skywalker, because I'm like, I feel like he would have made that movie better, although the bar is not set really high. But
that wouldn't be much.
I know.
He probably would have made a better General Hux.
Oh my God, that is very true.
Of course, it would also require Hux be written better, but I still think he would have elevated the crap that was handed to Brandon Gleeson. And I don't mean that as a shot at Brandon Gleeson. Like you were given crap to work with. I just think Matt's a more talented actor.
I know we've segued in the movies, but I will say this, and I'm going to tie this into video games because I want to fucking play this as a video game. Matt Smith deserves an Emmy just for this fucking scene where he has no lines, but stands out there in front of the Crab King and all of his little minions and charges. Literally does not say, has no dialogue. And the very last Sam walking out of the cave with the head.
And the only with half of his body was attached to it too. But no, the only dialogue in that whole 5-minute set is Patty Considine narrating his letter to him.
Yeah, I know. But I'm
fantastic.
Just put that into an RPG game where I have to go through and go get the crab. The first time I watched that, seems like, God damn, that would be a great video game. Give me Matt Smith in a video game. Anyway. All right.
Picks up his crown and falls off his head is where I lose it every time.
I know.
Yeah.
God, that scene. Jesus. Okay.
All right. Well, getting back to our assessment of Spider-Man 2, Brendan hit the nail on the head. It's really just an expansion on a groundbreaking idea that's already been done. And that's the best way that we can describe our next game on the list. We're not saying it's not a good game, but they didn't do anything new. Star Wars Jedi Survivor. It is one of my favorite games of the year, especially as a Star Wars fan. I very much enjoyed it. We'll go back and replay it again at some point. And it's a much better Star Wars story than we've gotten from Disney. But you didn't really do anything new compared to Fallen Order.
And the launch was a little rough.
Yeah. It is gorgeous. It definitely adds to, some incredible lore as your characters are trying to rebuild basically the Jedi database between episode 3 and 4. And it gets a really great, strong start. This is one of the best starts in a video game. You are literally on a heist mission on Coruscant through the first, 10% of the game. But my biggest complaint it got very, very repetitive towards the end, and it made you have to use your force powers way too much that wasn't involved in combat. Like you jumping and scaling from place to place, and if you didn't time it correctly, you had to start all over. There's a couple of spots and they're just like, this is ridiculous. And I almost just shut the game off and said, I'm done. But at the end of the day, it was a fun Star Wars story, gorgeous, and the scene with Vader is, incredible. And I think as a Star Wars fan, you definitely want to know more about, the main character and where he has been, and how he fits into the overall story of Star Wars. Is he still alive at The Force Awakens? Or did they write him off like they did Ahsoka, where you travel to a planet where you're not going to come back? I don't know. But as I said, compared to what we have gotten, and for it to be an EA game, of all things, still one of the best games of the year. Now, was it worth $60 when it first came out? No, not really. Unless you're just a diehard Star Wars fan. But here's the thing. If you spent 20, 30 bucks on it, you'll get your money's worth. Or like most people, you'll wait a year and it's going to end up on EA Play and you're going to be able to download it for free. Kind of like the remake of Dead Space. There were a few times I'm like, do I really want to shell out 30 bucks for this game? And I forgot about it for a while, and then they announced, oh, it's free on EA Play or Game Pass. So now I can go back and play it.
Yep.
But anyway, it's funny. You unlock all these Jedi powers at the end of Fallen Order, and then it's like you immediately kind of regress and have to completely start over to unlock all the same powers again. But again, it was a lot of fun revisiting worlds and killing stormtroopers, and it had some great lightsaber battles for a sequel. But I still think Fallen Order was the better game.
I think the best part about it was the stormtrooper elevator guard who comes running at you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna get you, Jedi. It's like he just watched you like wax like 10 of his buddies, and
right.
He's gonna be that guy. He has, as the fat electrician likes to say, he's auditioning to be the main character for the story.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he found out that he was not the main character.
Right. Well, my earlier this summer, when I was done with the game, my nephew started it on my PlayStation 5, and I told him, it's like, you're going to love the beginning of this game. I mean, a heist mission on Coruscant and everything you have to do, it's incredible. But then you're going to get to points in the game where you feel kind of disappointed. Like it's too repetitive and boring compared to what you've already done. So anyway, ended up number 5 on our list, but certainly not game of the year. But we are getting close to what our game of the year is. All right. Number 4 on our list, Diablo 4. A game that has been in development hell for a decade, but they
I didn't even vote for. This was not on, don't blame me, folks. This was not on my top 10 list at all.
No, but it had enough votes to end up in our top 5 for those who are playing it. It is a good game. If you are a Diablo fan, it was in a lot of ways worth the wait. But I think there's a very interesting debate that happened this year with RPG games. Baldur's Gate 3, Diablo 4.
I wouldn't even compare the two because one's a CRPG, one's an action RPG. I think the much better comparison, and the reason why I wouldn't put it anywhere near a top 10 list, is because Path of Exile 2, which is in fucking alpha, is a better game. It's a better Path of Exile 2 right now. Path of Exile 2 in alpha against a released Diablo 4 is a better game. The mechanics are better. The character models are better. The animations are better. The boss fights are better. Path of Exile 2 is a superior game in every single aspect. And I'm sorry, but I'm just tired of eating shit from Blizzard. They can, and Bobby Kotick, you're gone. You're gone in what, 48 hours? You're gone out the door. Fuck you and good riddance.
Wow. And this is your I can't even get through it. Daily affirmations from Brendan Smith.
Dude, what they've done to the Diablo franchise in Diablo Immortal and Diablo 4, like, I'll never play anything past 3. Like, I'm just so done with that, with Activision Blizzard.
Well, and that's fine. For those of us that have played it and gotten through most of it and everything, I disagree with you. I think it's an incredible game. I've had more fun with it, like by myself, than I did with Baldur's Gate 3. I'm not saying that Baldur's Gate 3 isn't the better game. I'm not even making that necessarily that comparison. I'm just saying that I can jump into Diablo 4, play by myself for hours and enjoy it. And I feel like Baldur's Gate 3 is more of something I want to do with friends. Now, if you want to compare Diablo 4 to Diablo 3, I actually went back and started playing 3 again. I don't know. I mean, I really do enjoy 3, but I think that they have made mass improvements with 4 that it has been a lot of fun. So that's just my take. I disagree with you on the comparison with Paths of Exiles 2, but that's just me. So, but anyway, for those of us that are playing it, it did end up in our top 5 at number 4. And Chad, I know you're not playing this game. You're like out. I'm like in between, like, yeah. And that's usually the way it works. So one thing we should point out to everybody who's watching this show, we all have a variety of different interests in video games. We don't all get to the same games. It's great to have a staff where you can, like, I'm not going to get to this game or put 120 hours into it, but I trust my buddy's opinion of it to why it's good or not worth playing. And then sometimes we disagree. Trust me, nobody on that nerd show plays more NHL than I do, or FIFA.
It's true.
Yeah. Chad's up Fortnite. What if he wants to play Fortnite? No, he's playing FIFA.
Yeah, I don't even bother.
Hey, man, I just suck at Fortnite. I don't hate Fortnite. I just suck at it. I'm
not good at it at all.
Me and Twitch-based shooters, that's just a die and respawn game. That's all I do is die and respawn.
So you're not getting the next DLC of Destiny 2?
Well, Destiny 2 I have no problem with because Destiny 2 is a PvE game. There's no PvP element.
Right.
And the AI in most PvE shooters, Halo, Destiny, the AI is pretty shit. I mean, it's good enough to make a game somewhat challenging to where, you know, I'm going to get a hit eventually, but it's not like when you're playing against other people and other people who may or may not have better gaming rigs than you do and a better internet connection. And if you've got a better rig and a better internet connection and you're playing Fortnite on PC, guess what? You're going to win most of the time if you're halfway decent at the game because you've got a faster a faster ping rate. You can process everything, what you're seeing faster. You can see farther out. So, you know, it's just for me playing those online shooters against better players who have more time to play. And I will freely admit I'm terrible at that style of gaming. This is not me saying that game sucks. Well, the game's a very good game. I'm just terrible at it. And then I also have an older computer. I do have a very good internet connection, but I have an older computer, so I can't see as far out because I have to shorten the clip radius so I can actually run the game and not have my computer have a stroke. And then I just run around and some guy snipes me from far away and I die and I respawn and then I get sniped again and then I respawn and then I get sniped again and then I want to throw my computer across the room. And so I just don't play those games because it's a predictable outcome and partially because of my computer, but mostly because I suck at the game.
Well, what Brendan's really trying to say is he's just terrible at games. A little Charles Ball. Terrible. You know, one of the ongoing discussions that we have with that nerd show is games that are a lot of fun on your own compared to games that are just more fun playing with other people. And I think a lot of what you are describing, it's always better like when you have like your own little squad.
Oh, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
It's a nice thought, Marcus, but it wouldn't matter. I suck that much. Like I said, this is totally on me. This is not. This is yeah.
I get it.
Yeah,
but you have a squad kind of, helping you. It's like
I
don't jump into Fortnite as much anymore because I enjoy playing it more with friends.
And after a while, you guys would resent me being there because I would just be dragging the squad down.
No, we would push you up front. You're the distraction.
Yeah. Wouldn't last.
Everybody needs a good bullet sponge.
All right.
You're going to play it with us at least once, I think.
Speaking of comparisons between Diablo 4 and Baldur's Gate 3, we're not going to compare gameplay, very different. But I think an interesting debate, and we're not going to do it on this show, would be who has the better cutscenes. Anyway.
My vote on that one. So.
I know. We already know where you're going with that. I will praise both of the games for incredible cutscenes that have, great movie-like quality, and I feel like you can literally just watch the cutscenes as a movie. So, all right, we are getting to our top 3 games of the year. So number 3 on our list is Hogwarts Legacy. At the beginning of the year, before anything was released, we kind of all talked about, is this really going to end up being game of the year? It was incredible. We were pleasantly surprised by how good it is. But before we kind of talk about that, we do have to address the fact that, yes, it came with a lot of controversy, a lot of unnecessary controversy because of J.K. Rowling's idiotic views. I still criticize the Game Awards for being pussies and then not at least giving it a nomination. I think the biggest tragedy about this game all year long is the fact that she had nothing to do with it, and it came with so much fucking baggage that people were turned off. And you could be accused of bad things if you played this game, where you couldn't, like, I've talked to people in the entertainment industry that's like, we can't say we're playing this game or we might be canceled. And it's like, it's a video.
It didn't affect the average Joe, though, because it still sold 20+ million copies.
Yeah, it's still the highest selling game of the year outside of like sports games. So it's like, but we're going to dive into Hogwarts Legacy a little bit because we have talked about it. We actually did a really great article. Brendan's wife, Erin, was the first one to complete the school year.
Yeah. I actually think she's still working on that character to platinum the game. I think she finally found that one last chest in Hogwarts that was driving her nuts that she couldn't find, and it was in a room that had 2 chests. It was one big chest and one small chest, and she just didn't see the small chest, so she just found that the other day. So she doesn't have much left, but she actually started a second playthrough because she did her first playthrough as Hufflepuff, which is what she always ends up testing out to be, and now she's doing a Gryffindor. And I did mine as a Ravenclaw, and I haven't finished the game. I got to about level 30. And the reason why I only got to level 30 basically are the reasons why I didn't put it any higher than 6th on my list. I think it's a very good game, but I think it's a few things away from being a great game. Number one, the being in a different house has very little impact on the game. You have one different quest that all of them you go into. And honestly, I think they really should take a look at the now 12-year-old MMO Star Wars The Old Republic, and how everywhere you go, you have your class quest and you have the faction quest for that planet. And I really think what they should do is add in a story quest line for your schoolhouse. And it doesn't have to, like, if the main quest line is like 40 hours, right? It doesn't have to be another 40-hour quest line for each house. It could be 10 to 20 hours a piece, right? That immediately expands the replayability of this game, because now you have another 30 to 60 hours of content once you finish your initial playthrough that you haven't yet played through, right? So you can go do all those house storylines. So I think that would be a huge benefit to the game. The other benefit, I would like to see a little bit more depth in the combat system, because I thought there were some really cool combos but I thought you got most of them really quickly. So there was nothing to build on in later game that kept the combat iterating and kept the combat changing and growing. So I think a little more depth in the combat system would not go amiss. And those are my two big things.
Well,
Just a little more depth in the combat and the house storylines. And I think that really could push that type of game from a very good game to a great game.
well, here's the thing. You're talking about two things where you're introducing a new kind of gameplay, within a world that let's face it, Harry Potter games before this. Yeah, I mean, they were good for their time. The Lego game's kind of fun, blah, blah, blah. But a true Harry Potter story that where you're not playing Harry Potter. You've done something good, but now you got to build on it to make
sure. And the game deserves to be on the list just for the simple fact that you have a completely fully explorable Hogwarts castle.
Yeah,
I mean, that alone could when the game was first being talked about, I was like, oh, all right, it's going to get a full Hogwarts castle. I thought that was the whole game. I didn't realize you're going to get half the damn Scottish Highlands plus Hogsmeade too. So I mean, that
you
was
really
a really
use your broom skills to get around. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was really a pleasant surprise. So, there are definitely parts of the game that really, make it belong on the top 10 list. But those two drawbacks are why I put it at 6.
For me personally, it was my favorite game of the year. I am not a huge Harry Potter fan, but I felt like having a unique story that's, a prequel to everything that we've seen come out in movies where you got to basically play throughout the school year. I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. I mean, it didn't bother me that much because of the unique experience with the game. But at the same time, I've had so much fun playing this game. And you're right. If you're not going to have that much difference between which house you're playing from, then it doesn't really matter. There's unless you just want to play the entire game over again, there's no reason to go back and play like an entirely new character. And I will agree that that's to me the biggest drawback. But the game's got a lot of replay value. It's a world that you're going to want to go in and continue playing. And there's a lot of great side quests. So if you're a huge Harry Potter fan and you want to do your own school year type thing, you want to dive into this game. And I think that's a lot better than, doing a mobile app where you're just kind of walking around. And I'm not knocking that, but
I'll knock mobile games.
Yeah. To Mare, there was just an awful lot to do, and it was definitely worth the value. Now, Chad, you're not a huge Harry Potter fan either, but you dived into this game like crazy as well.
Just on your guys' word, solely on your guys' opinion of this game. That's the only thing that drew me in the first place. Was you guys were so enthusiastic about it.
Yeah,
it was completely off my radar, and you
we
guys
weren't wrong.
Yeah, you guys talked it up so well that I'm like, you know what? These are my boys and I trust them. And I had enough passing interest in Harry Potter and the world that it's set in that I was like, okay, this seems like it's got potential. And
Sure.
I got sucked in real quick. It's like literally the reason I got an Xbox Series X. It's the first thing I.
And let me tell you, WB, if they don't screw it up, they've got a gold mine here because you started the character as a 5th year, so you can do a trilogy with 6th and 7th year because that's what Hogwarts goes to. But then you can take the same theme and you could go back to the Middle Ages if you wanted to, or you could go to the Renaissance, or you could bring it forward to World War II, and you could have some type of not zombie, but some type of a Nazi wizard that is trying to take over the wizarding world. So I mean, there's a lot of different things they could do throughout history. You could even go back and I mean, I don't know if J.K. Rowling or WB would even allow this, but you could even go back and do something with the 4 original house members.
Yeah.
So there's a lot they could do.
Well, it's such a huge universe, and that's also kind of my argument against the controversy is it, yeah, I know she wrote it, I know she's the creator, blah, 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 but is it really hers anymore? There's so many fans, and there's been, more unique stories within this, and there's a lot of great fan fiction out there as well, that it's like, we don't need you anymore. You wrote your core story. Okay. Harry Potter is great. Curse of the Child or whatever that is, fine, great. And I don't mind the prequels either. I'm kind of sad they're not going to finish them out, but they were enjoyable. I thought Jude Law it was great as a young Dumbledore.
That's what happens when you jump the gun and side with Amber Turd.
Well, anyway, um, there's so much potential with this, and I hope they continue to make games. And I think you're going to finally crack it, that you're going to be able to come out with such an incredible game that it probably is going to end up being, game of the year. To me, this is like Uncharted. Like, you've introduced us to something great, or like the reboot of Resident Evil. You've introduced something great, but I know that you're going to be able to top it with the sequel. And Uncharted 2 is obviously much better than the first Uncharted, and Rise of the Tomb Raider was so much better than the first Tomb Raider game. Actually, Rise is my personal favorite out of that trilogy. So, sky's the limit. We'll see what happens. But whether you're a true Harry Potter, and I've talked to so many people that aren't even really Harry Potter fans, they're gamers, and they looked at it as like, yes, I want this game. And
because I think the exploration aspect of it, and why I have such a big problem with Starfield, it allowed you to go anywhere and do whatever you wanted, and when you went there, it had things for you to do, things for you to find, so it's that meaningful exploration that I talked about earlier when talking about games like Starfield and Oblivion and Fallout 3. It's not just that you had a big open world. It's that you had a big open world full of things to do and things to find, whether it was a cave or whether it was flying through the balloons or doing the races with your Baroom, or finding the chests in Hogswort, or the pages scattered throughout. There was always something to find. There was always something to look for. And that's a huge component of having an open world. You can't just have a big empty sandbox. You have to populate it with stuff. And that is one thing that Hogwarts Legacy did very well, is they populated it with a bunch of things to find and discover. And that is something that
didn't feel like work.
Exactly. Yeah, and and there was always a reward for it too. Like, there was always a piece of armor or a wand holder, or there was always something there as a reward for finding these things too. And they didn't make it onerous too. They didn't make it like you didn't have to find 10,000 of these things to get some, one little piece of gear. It was, you had to get 5, 10, 15, 20. And so it made a lot of sense, and it was an easy progression. And I think that's something they did exceptionally well.
Yeah, I agree. All right. And I do like what you have said too, that the potential with the character starting out as a fifth year, being able to do 2 more years before graduates, or she graduates, that's 2 opportunities to make incredible games, and to make them better than the previous. So,
and the best part about it is all the code's already written for the castle and the grounds. So your half of your development work's already done for you. You have to come up with a new story, do new voice recording, get new NPCs for new students coming in, old students going out. There's a lot of work to do there. And then, of course, you maybe want to add a new location, like maybe fully fleshed out Azkaban, or a fully fleshed out Diagon Alley, or something like that. But a large majority of the work is already done. Yeah. So, I mean, that's great for them. It just,
And do we go the Mass Effect route and have the decisions that you made in the previous game carry over?
I would love that if they did, because I think that is something that was a feature that it's kind of, it's the Madden effect. I hate to bang. No, I don't hate to bag on Madden again. I'm going to do it. it's a feature that was common in video games for a long time, and then it just went away. And it went away. I don't know if it's because, and I hate to say this, I don't want to say it's developer laziness, but it's probably because,
I'll go with that.
I'm gonna give most developers the benefit of the doubt and say it's not developer laziness. It's that they had to prioritize certain things because publishers are trying to push games out early because publishers are beholden to shareholders. And so there's always this rush to get games out before they really are feature complete. And so, I'd love to see that come back in the second game because there are things that were going to be done a little bit differently. Maybe not as crazily different as you're going to see in Baldur's Gate 3, but people are going to have different outcomes to this game. And so, and whether or not which house they were in, what gender they played, so there's a lot of different things that could carry over. And I think that would be a really good idea.
Yeah.
I'm all in on that.
All right. Hey, Chad, come up a little closer. You're blurring out there. You look, you look like the.
You look like you're on Japanese porn.
Yeah. I don't know. You're still kind of blurry there. I don't know.
By the way, I saw a great one the other day. It was
hold on one second. So no, hold up. Oh, I don't know. Your camera keeps fading you in and out.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, Chet. Yeah, it's so now you're normal. There's a great meme, and it's got an American Arleigh Burke, and then it's got a Japanese Arleigh Burke, and the 5-inch mount on the Japanese Arleigh Burke is pixelated.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, my dilithium crystals are kind of low on power.
That's nerd reference there. All right. We're going to move to number 2. Number 2 and number 1 were actually very close in our voting, but
it's a couple points apart, right?
Yeah, pretty much. So number 2 on our list, yes, The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom, and a sequel to Breath of the Wild. It's been 6 years. Which I knew this was going to be in our top 10 list. Has
it really been 6 years since Breath of the Wild?
Yeah, it's been 6 years since we had such a contentious debate about whether that was Game of the Year or Horizon Zero Dawn. But I feel like they kind of picked back up, where they left off. If you're a Zelda fan, obviously you've got to play this game. It makes such a huge, fun, open world. More to it.
Huge doesn't even begin to describe this open world.
I'm right. Is it better than Ocarina of Time? I don't know, but that's
a lot of strong nostalgia you've got to get over.
I know.
People, you go into cons today, and people are walking down the cons, playing ocarinas still because of the game that came out 20 years ago. So
I know.
Yeah, and by the way, nobody's playing an ocarina anywhere else. It's like,
yeah. But anyway, getting back to the Zelda games and everything, I loved Breath of the Wild. My only actual complaint about Breath of the Wild was it didn't look any different from the Wii U to the Switch, because I ended up buying a Wii U. I started it on the Switch years ago when it first came out, sold the Switch, and then I got a Wii U during the pandemic and picked up Breath of the Wild and started over. I'm like, wow, the graphics are exactly the same. How about that? However,
same thing happened with Twilight Princess with the game Wii. So
now, Chad, now if Chloe was here, she would rave for the next hour or so about how wonderful this game is. But sadly, we don't have that kind of time. So, Chad, you're playing it, you're getting into it and everything. Tell us why you love it so far.
It handles like a dream. It's beautiful from top to bottom. And I'm just scratching the surface. I literally just picked the game up as a Christmas gift. So I'm just now getting started on it. And my cousin, who's been goading me for weeks because he got it like a couple months ago, are you getting this? I'm like, I think I am. I'm pretty sure I am. And I did. I got and by God, boys, I got a strategy guide. For the first time in ages, I got a strategy guide for a video game that is that thick. And it's hardbound. That's the book itself is gorgeous. But the thing that's got me most intrigued is that I know eventually the world opens up to an underworld.
Right.
The underworld by itself is bigger than Breath of the Wild by itself.
Wow.
So
So
that is the indication that you play through this entire game that's every bit as rich and vibrant as Breath of the Wild, and then you go underground and there's a bigger world beneath you.
So anybody knows me knows I've had problems with Nintendo for a few years now with their choice of or their choice to underpower the Wii, which I just don't understand, and I never will. But I will say this: the Zelda games always come out looking beautiful, and I have a soft spot because I was always a Zelda guy over Mario. I don't have anything against Mario. I just when I was a kid, I always just thought it was what I don't understand why two plumbers are superheroes. Like I did like it, you know. So I was like, here's this little elf that's a knight. I'm like, okay, that makes sense to me. He's a knight. He's going to save the princess. Why is a plumber saving? Whatever. I don't know. It didn't make sense to me when I was 10 years old. Okay. So
hey, Sheldon, quit trying to apply logic to everything. Okay. Just enjoy it.
That is some deep rooted cynicism there, Brett.
See, I say that with all the love in the world because while I do not like the Big Bang Theory as a whole, I've enjoyed the hell out of Young Sheldon, and I went and binged watched it not too long ago. I was like, this is a more brilliant show.
I don't have anything against. I really don't have anything against Mario. I just always liked Zelda better.
No,
I beat the original Super Mario Brothers. I don't think I beat 2. I'm pretty sure I beat 3. I think 2 was the hardest one for me. But I beat Zelda 1 and 2 over and over and over again. Like I wore out my first gold cartridge of Zelda on my NES. So like it just didn't. The NES still worked. The cartridge didn't. It was just.
Well, so. I will say this. I think if there's any game that deserves a huge open world, it's obviously Zelda. And Breath of the Wild was amazing, and to be able to make a better game, more of an open world, more exploration, that I do praise Nintendo for that. That alone is worth getting a Nintendo Switch.
I just the next Nintendo is probably coming out in a couple of years, and I implore them, don't underpower it. I know you're a family video game company, but that doesn't mean you can't have nice things. Okay, just like put a proper graphics processor in there. Okay.
By the way, Chad,
some decent amount of RAM.
By the way, I do have to point this out. You're kind of becoming more of a newer gamer when you get the strategy guide. I would figure as an old school gamer, you would just wing it like we all had to do back in the day.
Well, just GameFAQs is such a pain in the ass.
See,
I like pretty pictures and stuff. So
that's one area where Nintendo did do much better than Hogwarts Legacy, because the Hogwarts Legacy strategy guide, Erin hates it. She's like, it's a pretty picture book, it's a pretty art book, because it's not a strategy guide. There's no strategy in it. So she was very disappointed with that strategy guide.
Who published? Any idea who put it out?
What'd you say?
Do you know who put it out? Do you know who
I don't
it?
offhand know who put it out, but she was like, it wasn't even a proper map.
Because I'm
she was like,
sure
had pretty art, but that's about.
I think that there I go. My dilithium crystals are dying again.
Yeah, quit looking like Japanese porn.
I'm pretty sure that because I got both guides for both Zelda games. I got both of them as gifts. I got both of these hardback guides, and I'm pretty sure they were done by Piggyback Interactive.
She was saying it was Scholastic did it, which makes no sense, because why wasn't like Prima doing it? So or somebody like that.
If Prima still exists, I don't know, but Piggyback has always been like, I think they've kind of they're the crown jewel of spec guides.
Well, the one thing that we know for sure, Chad, we know what he's going to be doing on his vacation the next week. So I won't see you in Fortnite. But hey, that's what happens when you get a really good game. And that's what makes, video games so fun. Especially as you get older and you get a really good game like, do I really want to go out on New Year's Eve? Nah, I'm going to stay home. I've got my alcohol and I can celebrate the new year by playing a really good game.
Let's stay away from amateur night. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. So it's time to announce our game of the year. And I repeat, it is not Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. It is not. I figure at this point, it's pretty easy to figure out. And again, I make jokes, but it's literally the one time in this is our 10th time doing a show announcing our game of the year. It's the first time ever that our game of the year ended up being what won the Game Awards. And I am talking about Baldur's Gate 3. Since I haven't really done that much to it, Brendan is the connoisseur of this game. Brendan, why is it worth Game of the Year? Why did everybody get it right this year?
Okay, so very simply, the game allows you to do whatever the fuck you want. So from character creation to building your character through the class system from Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, just to give you an idea, I have a couple of different playthroughs that are at least 20 hours in. I have one that's 80 hours in and two that are more than 20. Those are my main character is a level 6 warlock, level 6 bard. He is a Pact of the Blade warlock. He is a College of Swords bard. He is the ultimate fencer. Okay. And then I have a paladin with a little dip into bard for some support stuff. And then I have a muscle-based monk using the Tavern Brawler feat, which means I can double my strength to my attack and my strength bonus to my attack and damage, which means he hits like a bloody truck. And then I'm going to take him 3 levels of once I get level 6 monk. He's going to end up being a level 9 monk, level 3 rogue. And the reason for that is because I want the thief subclass from rogue, because thief subclass gives you an extra bonus action. That's incredibly powerful when you consider that the monk's flurry of blows feature is a bonus action. So if you have enough key points, you can, by a 9th level monk, can attack twice and then do 2 bonus actions, which means he's hitting 6 times per turn. So, and then you got to imagine if he's got a 20 strength, or by that level, you can raise it up past 20, you can get a 22 strength. So that's a +6 to attack and damage. So you're looking at 6 damage per attack. So you've got 36 base damage on top of your 1d8 per. So you got 6d8 per plus 36 damage. And if you have any weapons that are out, like, knuckles or gloves that are adding bonus damage, you can add so much damage. You're just an absolute beast, with martial arts. So there's so many different ways you can attack the game from a mechanical standpoint. And then you get into the story. And immediately, like Chad was talking about with the underworld, it's the same thing here. So you have the normal world, and then you have the Underdark in the first act. And the second act is the only act that doesn't really have the Underdark to it. But it does have multiple levels with towers and some dungeons. Like the Gauntlet of Shar is really cool, and that's a dungeon that goes down. And then you get into the third act, and the third act itself almost has 3 different acts, because you have Rivington, you have the lower city, and then you have the upper city. But in the lower city, you have the lower city, and then you have the lower city sewers. So you have which is as big as the lower city on top of it. So you have just this massive world, and you can play. If you want to be an evil prick, you can be an evil prick. If you decide your idea of saving the world is taking control of the monster and becoming the guy who rules the world, you can do that. If you want to kill every NPC in the game, you can do that. If you want to play the hero that does everything right, you can do that. If you want to do something in between, you can do that too. And your playthroughs can be vastly different from one playthrough to the next. In my main campaign, I'm playing a character with both classes. His primary stat is charisma. he's a face. He can talk to people and get people to do things he wants to. So when two of the companions, Shadowheart and Lae'zel, threaten to kill each other, you talk them down off the ledge and get them to play nice. And then they become, frenemies. Well, in my other playthrough, I was playing a character that wasn't a charisma-based character. I had no charisma. So when I made that roll, with Shadowheart had a knife to Lae'zel's throat, I failed the roll. Shadowheart straight up slit Lae'zel's throat.
Huh.
Oops. I don't have that companion anymore.
So let me ask you this. Two things. Do you feel like playing a game like this is better or just as good as doing a tabletop version of D&D?
It's different. I don't know if it's better. It's better than, I'll put it this way. If you are in a situation where you don't have a regular game, or you don't feel comfortable getting on something like Roll20 and playing online, like I do every Thursday night, then it's better than not playing. There's a very different dynamic to tabletop RPGs. This is the closest thing you're going to get to a tabletop experience online, or just playing in a video game, because you're rolling your mechanics. All the attacks are determined by dice rolls, even if they're rolled in the background and you don't necessarily see the rolls. Right. But then all your social interactions, your disarming traps, your lock picking doors, your sleight of hand to steal, pickpocket, all that's done by actual dice rolls that you see, and you can add different bonuses to. So it is the closest thing you're going to get to a tabletop experience in a video game. Right. Whether it's better, I don't want to say it's better or worse. It's just different. But it's the closest thing you're going to get to that experience. And, if your follow-up question to that is going to be, is it better played by yourself or with friends? I couldn't tell you, because I haven't even tried the multiplayer yet. I'm so engrossed in the single player aspect of it that I haven't even tried.
I think everybody's going to be different on that. Like I said, I just know how I would play the game after doing it a little bit, that I want to play with people instead. The other question because this is really the first time that we've had a D&D game kind of become game of the year that's different outside of
yeah, because we haven't had a good D&D game in about 20 years.
Yeah, that's the point. I mean, literally that fucking piece of shit that they put on Game Pass a couple of years ago, we literally rated it a 0. It was so horrible.
Yeah, it was just trash.
But the other thing too is with this, the cutscenes are absolutely amazing.
And I mean, first of all, they're all mocapped, so you're getting actual. It's not. Again, another place where this destroys Starfield is, Starfield. I mean, Starfield lives in the uncanny valley, right? I mean, it's just blank face. You will come to this place and do this mission for us because we are from. Holy crap! Really? So like, there's no animation to the face. It's just like it looks. Christ, it looks like Oblivion, and that game's 15 years old. So with this, everything's mocap, so you get little twinkles of the eye, you get little twitches of the eyebrow, little smirks, all of that stuff comes through. So that's really great. And then there's the dialogue, and the voice acting is all top notch. The voice acting is all stellar. Of course, the guy who played Astarion won, but any one of them could have been nominated. I mean, he's obviously got nominated because he's very cheeky and, very flirty, and so everybody's favorite guy to talk to. I get it. And he did a great job. I'm not taking away from him because of what his, dialogue was. But, all of the dialogue is extremely well done. The dialogue is well written and it's well delivered. And it's just a fantastic game. And then you got back some of the people you have, like the main villain of Act 2 is voiced by J.K. Simmons. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It's like, how can you go wrong there? So there's just some, and a couple of them, there's some geek throw-ins too. I think Felicia Day voices a character somewhere. Matt Mercer voices a character. Pretty big one too, I think. I forget who.
I think this is something we've talked about all year too. I mean, the biggest coup for this game is literally sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. Anyway, shoot. Oh my gosh. Technical difficulty.
You're saying the biggest coup
of this game is the kind of game they were able to make on half the budget of some of these other major titles, and it hadn't been in development hell for like forever. So I mean,
yeah, it was 6 years in development. 3 of that was in open access, so you could buy the game early and play Act 1 and help them develop the game on Steam, which I think you're going to see a lot more of in the future. They spent about $100 million to make it, and there's a misconception out in the community too. A lot of people I've seen this on YouTube. People are trying to conflate Hasbro's problems and to say that Hasbro's laying people off because Baldur's Gate 3 didn't sell well. And it's like, no. Hasbro has a ton of other problems, which is why they laid off 2,000 people this year, 1,100 in December and 800 back in March. If you look at Hasbro's third quarter quarterly earnings, they stated that directly due to Baldur's Gate 3, their digital income went up 40% quarter over quarter. And that's not just for Wizards of the Coast, that's for all of Hasbro. And then their operating profit for Wizards of the Coast quarter over quarter went up 99%. Now, what you have to understand about that is Hasbro did not pay for this game to be made. Wizards of the Coast did not pay for this game to be made. Larian paid them a licensing fee, and all of the budget came from Larian for the first 3 years, and then through early access sales on Steam. So Hasbro is out nothing. In fact, they were pure profit from the get-go. They got their licensing fee, and then they get a small back end of the revenue that comes in. So if the small back end of the revenue moved Hasbro's balance sheet 40% in the positive from the previous quarter, imagine what Larian got to keep.
Yeah,
they probably made $1 billion or more on this game. When it first came out, Sven tweeted that first afternoon. Sven tweeted that he's like, I better not show my and for those who don't know, Sven is the director of Larian Studios. And he said, I better not show my face in the IT department for a while because I told them to expect 100,000 concurrent players, maybe 150,000. And right now we have 853,000. It was the 7th most played at one time game in Steam history.
Jesus,
and
really?
then it was the #1 game when it launched on PlayStation in the PlayStation Store, and it was the #1 game on Xbox when it launched a couple weeks ago on the Xbox Store. So, yeah, it's selling, and they're so confident in it. They're like, no, we are not doing Game Pass. We are not doing PlayStation Plus. We believe that we have a quality product that is worth paying for, and if you want to play it, that's great. And if you don't, we understand. But know that it's a completed product. We do not charge you microtransactions for anything. This is against Larian's. Larian will never give you a microtransaction. And previously, and we'll see if they do this with Baldur's Gate 3, but previously their DLCs for Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2 were free DLCs. So we will see if they do that again. So just the dollar, I mean, I've put 120 hours into the game so far. Actually, probably closer to 140 if you could PC and PS5. So, and yeah, so I paid basically $1 an hour because I bought it twice. So 70 times 2, 140. So I've paid about $1 an hour, and it goes down per hour every time I turn it on.
Yeah.
And for the amount of enjoyment I've gotten out of this game, it's easily the best value in video gaming I've ever had outside of an MMO where you've put, I've probably put 1,000 hours into SWTOR, maybe more. But that had a monthly subscription too. So, there you go. For
my point about this is if not only are you getting good quality, you're getting a different style of game that doesn't often win big awards, but they've been able to make a really great D&D game that's beautifully made. And taking, like you said, not having microtransactions, not trying to, but the overall value of what you are getting and the amount of time that you're going to play, whether it's on your own or with friends, that's exactly what good video games should be, or what great video games should be. You know?
Yeah. And now Larian Studios has got the money to do whatever the hell they want going forward,
Right.
because they've got FU money. And I know Hasbro's going to be begging them to be Baldur's Gate 4, but I'm not convinced that'll be their next game. I think my gut is they're going to finish the Divinity Original Sin trilogy and do a third one of that. My hope is that they do a Star Wars Old Republic game.
No, I agree. Now, I mean, if you talk about value, you've paid for this game twice, one for your, one for, and it was still worth 120.
Yeah, because so when I bought it on I did not, I almost forgot how old my laptop is at this point. It's 6 years old, and it's really getting to the edge on new games of what it can and can't do. And man, I had to run everything on low graphics, and I was still running into issues, and it's too old. It meets the requirements, but barely. I was like, you know what, this is not. I love the game. The game's a lot of fun, but my computer's preventing me from playing it. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and buy it on PS5. So I bought it on PS5 because we had just gotten one anyway, and it will run smooth as silk on PS5. I have not tried it on Xbox. I don't plan on buying it on Xbox because I've already got a lot on that hard drive anyway.
Right.
And so, but I'm hopefully, I know they've had some issues, mainly because Xbox made them put it on the S and X at the same time, because they were having problems with the processing power on the S not being enough to run split screen co-op. And so I think them forcing to put it out for the S and the X has caused some issues for the Xbox thing. But Larian has also done 5 full patches and 15 hot fixes in the 3.5-4 months that the game has been out. So I have no doubt that they are hard at work already on patches for the Xbox to get it up to snuff.
Yeah, well, since I bought a copy of it, there's already been like one major update. So,
yeah.
Well, as I said, this has been a very weird year because we are very different in how we look at the best games of the year compared to what I feel like is corporate bullshit with the Game Awards. And, to me, it's like the Oscars and whatnot. Most of the time, I don't think the best stuff always wins. But this is that one year where everybody just gets it right. And there's no denying how great Baldur's Gate 3 is. And what a studio like Larian could do, and it's a game changer. And hopefully other major studios like Bethesda and Ubisoft and all that, take notice. And that's what you have said from the very beginning. So
yeah, they took notice whether they do anything or not, because they all came out going, "Don't expect this to be the new standard going forward." And look, let me address that really quickly. To all the developers that said, don't expect this to be the new standard going forward, because they had a big budget and a huge team in a long time. They had a 400-man team. It's not a small team, I'll grant you that. They had a $100 million budget. It's not a small budget. They had 6 years. Okay. Starfield, 8. Okay. And they had a bigger team with more money. And you have games like Skull and Bones, which you mentioned earlier. That's been 10 years. Bigger team, more money. So don't tell me it can't be done by a team of a similar size. Hey, Diablo 4, 10 years. You know how many people were on that team? Over 8,000 people have worked on that game at one time or another.
No, I mean,
yeah. So, I don't want to hear it from developers when they cry about big team, too much money. It's bullshit. That number one, that's bullshit. Number two, your customers do not care. Your customers want value for their money, especially in this day and age where the dollar has been devalued so much. So put your big boy pants on, make good games, and quit bitching when other people make better games.
the reason it is such a huge game changer is what it has proven, like you just said, to the bigger developer. So you're all out of excuses because this game you didn't think was going to do just one game of the year, and everybody agreed it's the best game.
And
So,
and with as much as what it did differently, it brought back things that we used to have.
right.
Quality at launch for a price without a bunch of microtransactions. Okay. This is what the standard was. Now, granted, it innovated in some areas in the game itself, but the product, the value, that is what the standard used to be. So it's not so much that they did something crazily new. They kind of went and did a throwback.
Yeah.
So, I'm just tired of hearing it from, and look, I know game developers don't have it easy. I know you got to work for assholes like Bobby Kotick. You got to work for assholes like John Riccatello. And thank God both of those two guys are going to be unemployed. But I know that's a thing. But don't get on Twitter and start whining about it because it just makes you look stupid.
I agree. All right. With that said, I mean, like I said, we can't disagree with the Game Awards regarding Baldur's Gate 3. And yes, obviously, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is an incredible game and better than Breath of the Wild. And Hogwarts Legacy proved to be an amazing game with a lot of room to grow. So it was a good year in games. And
Best year we've had in a while, actually.
Yeah, it's
there were some great games that all of us voted for that didn't end up making it on the list. Like I loved the game that got shadow dropped last year on the Xbox Hi-Fi Rush. That was a lot of fun. Sea of Stars was a great little indie game. There was a ton of great games that came out this year that didn't make it onto our list. So, it's one of those years where normally I have a hard time filling out a 10, like in the last 2022, 21, 2020, especially obviously COVID reasons, 2020 and 2021. But I mean, you can go back 5 or 6 years and I had a problem coming up with 10 games I wanted to put on the list. This year I had a problem like leaving off a bunch of games. Like I wanted to put Street Fighter 6 on there. I just couldn't justify it over some of the other games, but it definitely, in my opinion, deserved it. So yeah.
Well, who knows what next year is going to be with games and what's coming out. Obviously, there's a lot of anticipated games. I mean, the Star Wars open world game does look amazing, but just because it looks amazing doesn't mean it actually will be.
So I get to build. I get to build.
Come out either.
I get to build a new. I get to build a new computer next year with my new job. So first new computer in 6 years. So once that's built, I'll be spending most of my time in 2 alpha games, and that would be the Aforementioned Path of Exile 2 and Star Citizen, because I already have 2 starships in Star Citizen. And Star Citizen, you can actually, hey Todd, you see that planet over there? You can fly to it. And then when you land on it, you can drive around it, and you can drive all the way around or fly all the way around it. And it has dynamic cloud cover and weather and all this wonderful things that you promised that aren't in your game.
We do have to give some of these, developers and their leaders credit for some really good acting and having to bullshit their way, knowing that it's
Todd Howard, man. I mean, that I don't know why I trusted him again. Like, shame on me. Absolutely shame on me.
Did you learn nothing from Peter Molyneux? Did you learn nothing?
Oh God, well, yeah. Peter Molyneux, the king of overpromise, underdeliver.
All right, so we're going to close out this show. We've done a couple of hours here talking about our top 10 games, what we really loved about them and stuff. And of course, we have more video games to play before the new year starts. So as for the most anticipated games coming out, things that have been announced, I feel like the new Blade video game will probably be better than the movie they're trying to release at this point with the change of directors.
God, I hope so. I mean, I know that was a bad way to say it, but I just hope the game is better, because if the game's as bad, we're going to have a problem.
Well, one thing I do want to say, just because we talked about it earlier in the year with the Last of Us series basically being the best video game adaptation that we've ever seen, and how sometimes it's better to actually do a series instead of trying to cram a huge story into 2 hours. I'm sorry, but the Uncharted movie just wasn't really that good. Anyway, I find it hilarious that they're trying to get me to spend $50 on the PS5 version of The Last of Us 2. And I'm like, the graphics aren't really going to be that much of a difference considering the game came out a few years ago, but sure, trying to get me to do that. I get why you did that with the first Last of Us, and it does look amazing, and it's worth going back because I've played it 3 times now. But I wanted to say, I don't know if there's a story for The Last of Us 3. There is, I guess there is, and it'll be interesting to see if they go that route. But I almost feel like a trilogy is all that you really need to do with that storyline. And
I just don't care about Naughty Dog's writing since Amy Hennig left. I'm waiting on her Star Wars game.
yeah, and I agree with that. They keep talking about a new Uncharted game. I don't really care. I'm curious to see what you do with a new Tomb Raider game. But I feel like the biggest, anticipation that we, have is Elder Scrolls 6 at this point, whenever that may be.
At least 5 years, if not more. At earliest, it's going to be 2028.
When the next gen starts.
And I may not survive long enough to see Fallout 5. We'll see.
But I am
actually happen in real life first.
I am very interested in the sequel to Ghost of Tsushima, which I still absolutely believe we made the right choice that year, that was a much better fucking game than The Last of Us Part 2. I've played and completed both, and I'm like, Last of Us Part 2 was cool with the 2 different storylines, but you're talking about a fucking samurai game, best samurai game we've ever had. Guys are idiots. Anyway, supposedly we're getting a Battlefront game with some kind of campaign, but who knows? One thing I will say about Battlefront, it is still fun to drop back into that multiplayer and just go apeshit, especially in Java's Palace.
Another dumb thing EA did. Hey, we finally fixed Battlefront 2, and it's a great game now. We have 20 million players. I guess we'll pull the plug.
Well, it's a lot more than Redfall. All right, everybody.
What's that one studio that shuttered last week or the week before last?
The Days Gone shutter. The Days Gone. Yeah, I forget.
Fantastic or something
Fantastic.
Like that?
Yeah, because it had a 4 or some bullshit in there. They're fantastic. Yeah, it was the most wish-listed game on Steam ever, and it came out and sucked. It wasn't anywhere close to what the trailers they showed. And they basically said in 10 days after release they shut down the studios, and that the game's Steam's like, yeah, we're giving refunds to everybody. The game's gonna shut down in 45 days.
Yeah.
But at least Steam stepped up and is giving refunds. That's really cool. Steam didn't have to do that.
No.
So
I know everybody wants to get into the video game business, and you think you're going to have that next great big game that everybody loves, but Jesus, if you're not even ready to come play, don't even try. Don't leave.
I know Star Citizen gets a lot of shit because it's been in development for 12 years, but that's because they had to build their own engine from the ground up to do what they wanted to do. And by the way, they did a trailer recently for the Star engine. Oh my God. Just go watch that trailer. It's 26 minutes of a contiguous shot going through the galaxy, through into atmospheric flight, down into cities, winding ways through cities, seeing people walking around, back up into the atmosphere, back into the sky, going into hyperspace, going to another planet. It's all one shot. It's like 26 minutes of 1917, that movie that we went to see a couple years ago. One contiguous shot. It's insane. It looks so good.
And one pick where there's that one contiguous shot of him running through the battlefield.
Yeah, the whole movie's one contiguous shot. It's filmed as one contiguous shot. But yeah, and it's just the Star engine it's just this going through the galaxy. It's amazing. It looks so good. And, I would say, oh, that's just in-engine nonsense normally. But I'm watching guys on YouTube play in Alpha 3.22, and the alpha footage looks that good. So I can't wait to get my new computer built up so I can jump in my MISC freelancer and I can go do basically be a smuggler and a hauler and So I've got a smuggling ship and I've got a fighter ship, so I get to play around, do whatever I want. So
Nice.
I'm really stoked about it.
Well, this is our final podcast of 2023. We will be back next year with a lot of different things going on, including more gaming podcasts. So, if you're wondering what to play, well, we've given you a lot of great recommendations. If you haven't picked up Baldur's Gate 3 yet, what are you waiting for? So, or even Hogwarts, or even Cyberpunk 2077. Now's the time to get in it. Yes, I'm going to keep talking up this game in Phantom Liberty, which I'm going to go back and play some more before I go to bed.
And if you want something fun, colorful, and free, and with a really rocking soundtrack, grab Hi-Fi Rush. It's a really cool little game.
All right, everybody, it's been we've had fun this year, and we'll be back next year. Time to say goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Take care.